Hi, it's Dwyer. KeepingItFree.blogspot.com, a free site. Always1776.com is another way to put in that site. Also, Money1776.com, a free site. Warning, nothing I say in this video, and I mean nothing, should be construed as financial advice. I want everyone to do their own due diligence. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. This morning, I woke up. I had bought a stock a couple days ago. Google, right? Actually, Alphabet. GOOGL, right? The actual parent company, right? The one where you get voting rights. I bought that a couple days ago, and I couldn't believe how lucky I was. I was giddy just thinking about it, right? The way I buy stocks, I'll stumble into a good idea, and then I will just, think to myself, okay, the next time I have savings, when this client pays me or whatever, right? I'm going to spend some money accumulating this stock. So I was giddy. I couldn't believe it. Here I was getting Google for a price earnings multiple of under 21, right? Which is unusual for Google. And, I thought to myself, wow, they recently announced that Waymo, Google's autonomous vehicle program, is coming to my neck of the woods in San Jose, California. I think the idea of autonomous vehicles is going to take off. Understand Waymo is far ahead of Tesla. And Tesla has had problems, but their prices have dropped. Where now Tesla's a bargain. Just food for thought. Right? While people are burning Teslas, just understand the price has dropped where now I'm interested. But understand that Waymo is operating at a higher level in terms of the safety of the autonomous vehicle. And of course, Google is in the AI space. You may have used Google Gemini. Google, of course, is in the advertising space. And just understand, while I'll agree that OpenAI and others can, now duplicate Google search results, right? They can give you some very accurate search results. Just understand that Google itself is in the AI space. Understand that Google really stands alone, in my opinion, as a YouTube creator in providing streaming content online, right? Most of the news I get these days is actually off the YouTube platform, believe it or not, right? I don't follow network news like I did as a kid. I think that's very valuable. I imagine filmmakers will start flocking to YouTube. I use YouTube's TV service. So let's just say I got YouTube at a price that I thought was great. I'm also one of these people in the crypto world who still owns Dash. I'm still bullish on Dash. DASH, right? If you want to look up the price history, DASH-USD. And I have a bit of Dash. So understand the perils of being an investor. I'm bullish on Google. I just bought Google, right? I've owned Google at different times in the past. But, Google's at a price level where, to me, it's compelling, right? Dash, I haven't sold Dash. I've owned Dash for years. I believe in both. So I wake up this morning, and of course, I just glance on my investment information online, right, using Yahoo Finance, right? I believe in Yahoo Finance and some other sites. And I saw that really before I left my bedroom, I had lost a few $100s today. In other words, I could have gone out and I could have had a steak and lobster breakfast. You know, the bill could have come. I could have had fresh squeezed orange juice. The bill could have come. It could have been $200, $250. I could have spoiled myself today. And I would still be hundreds of dollars ahead of where I am just rolling out of bed to start my day. Right? I need for folks to understand that you can believe in your investments. They could be the kind of investment you would make that week. Right? As I said, I bought Google this week. And for whatever reason, markets don't go in straight lines. I believe in Google today. Right? Google to me is going to be a long-term hold. I don't think I'll get these prices on Google anytime soon. But yet Google, after I bought the stock, is down 4% today. Today. Let me just tell you some of the things I like about Google too, just so you can get the full perspective. Right? Google, in terms of profitability, is off the page, folks. Their net income margin is at 29%. In terms of the top line, how much revenue is this company getting? Understand, year over year, the revenue growth is at 14%. The people who are balling right now are the people who have a lot of money on the sideline that they can deploy. Right? Understand, Warren Buffett, an excellent investor, has a cash hoard that is huge right now because he understands that we're about to enter into a recession. Right? So you can imagine Warren Buffett, you know, walking down the main boulevard, buying stuff for, we won't say pennies on the dollar, we'll say quarters on the dollar, as prices drop. Right? Well, folks, just understand, Google's cash flow is off the page. Just understand, Google's cash on hand is off the page. You know, in the middle of last year, if you look at the valuation of Google and you look at the valuation of Google now, just understand, it was much more expensive in June of 2024. Just look at the charts. And of course, if you're into cloud computing, right, if you're a crypto person and you understand the value of cloud computing, if you're an AI person and you yourself know that you use AI on a daily basis, you yourself understand that people who write code have been disintermediated from the market by AI. Right? I can tell you, doing legal research, AI is a godsend. Virtual assistants have an inherent cost advantage on human assistants these days in legal research. Right? You have these companies where they say, hey, look, we'll charge you, $500 or less a month to give you virtual assistance on things. And then you're thinking to yourself, wow, if I paid someone, it would be more than $500 a month. Right? Just understand, AI is here to stay, and it's going to disintermediate professions, the law profession. One wonders why you would even need a divorce attorney 5 years from now. If AI can prepare a marital settlement agreement for you, can access real estate appraisal, companies online and can give you a Zillow, Trillia level appraisal of the family property. Right? Can even solicit bids for the sale of the family property, can give you Kelly Blue Book on the value of the cars the couples have, and then can figure out what's called the equalizing payment. Folks, all of that's done by humans now, right? Just understand, 5 years from now, you'll be able to just punch in data and get, and divorce lawyers know what I'm talking about, a Nelson Hugg analysis on restricted stock units. You could be able to figure out the community property portion of the stock options. You won't have to pay the forensic accountant hundreds of dollars an hour to do stuff like that for you. Right? These days, I talk with prospective clients on the phone. They want to know their child support liability. I send them a link. Right? The state of California has an online child support calculator now. Right? Just understand, AI is here to stay. Google is well positioned in a bunch of things that are bullish. The stock's down. Simply put, if you know about Google, long term, it's more beer for us. Right? I might wake up tomorrow and I might be down several $100s tomorrow morning. Right? On these financials, and understand, Yahoo Finance, it's free. The numbers are available at Google Finance. That's free. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to get the real estate. In fact, to get the investment information. Just understand, I might be down hundreds of dollars more tomorrow. I'm going to ride the wave, maybe to oblivion. Right? I'm prepared to lose it all. I don't think I will on Google. I think this is an opportunity that is going to pay for itself in a few years. Right? Quantum computing. Understand, people like the CEO of NVIDIA can talk about how very useful quantum computers are years away. Right? You understand that era is coming. You understand that Google is into quantum computing right now. Right? Investors have a choice. They could wait until suddenly the money starts piling into the sector. Or they can buy a diversified company that is already in countless profitable areas. Right? Autonomous vehicles, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and get the quantum computing part for free right now. That's what I believe is happening with Google. Give it a look, right? Look at the price earnings ratio, right? That's what you want to focus on. Look at the valuations versus just June of last year, right? Look at the fact that never before has Waymo had access to this level of market. Right? Just think about the profitability of a Waymo hookup with Uber, which is wisely devoting a part of its offerings to autonomous vehicles. Right? Let me also say, too, that if autonomous vehicles, and it's an if, this could easily blow up. If autonomous vehicles are proven safe, if you aren't every few weeks hearing about some big collision involving autonomous vehicles where people have been badly hurt or killed, if in fact autonomous vehicles take off, consumer trust is going to overemphasize the early movers. In other words, if I've been in a Waymo vehicle and I've made it to my destination safely, right, why would I then venture into Joe's autonomous vehicle service? Right? If I'm taking autonomous vehicles, we'll call them AVs, across the Golden Gate Bridge, right? The Bay Bridge, right? If I'm taking them across the Triborough Bridge and I'm over water, and the last thing I need is for a car to stall out on me, especially when I don't own the car, I don't know the vehicle history, the upkeep on the car. There isn't a driver. Whoever owns the car is not in the car with me. And we're, over water on the way to Marin County. If I've done the trip successfully using Waymo, why would I ever switch? That level of customer allegiance, right, is going to be sticky. If you trust Waymo early and they deliver for you, why would you switch? Customer loyalty, folks, leads to profits for the outfits providing the service. That's the position Google is in right now. Let me tell you how interesting it is. Right? I've hopped in a car with several people who, I'll say are risky drivers. Right? Members of your family. My sister, God bless her, I've been in a car with her before. It's risky. But for political reasons, growing up, I couldn't say to mom and dad, what, she's driving? No mas for me. I'm not getting in the car, right? You're in family settings. Maybe your partner is a risky driver and you understand that you can't talk your way out of it. Right? You're like, hey, babe, I'll drive us to the restaurant. She's like, no, I want you to see, my new GPS in the car. And you're in the car and it's risky. Just understand that AVs now have reached a point where supposedly they're supposed to drive better than the average driver. Right? You might be one of the people watching this video who have people in your social circle who you don't want driving when you're in the vehicle. Right? AVs might actually give you an option to be in the vehicle with them and to actually have a better, safer driving experience. Right? Just like autopilot in planes is supposed to be relatively safe. Right? Certainly safer than your buddy who's a risk taker, who likes to look at you when they talk, even when they're driving. Give Google a look at these prices. The prices matter. Next, let's talk about a mistake by government. We'll get controversial in this video. Right? Understand we did several things the wrong way in the past. Right? You look up the 1950s and 1940s and you'll see smoking ads where doctors were endorsing cigarettes in the 40s and 50s. Right? Think about it. Let's face it, we've made mistakes in the past that we wouldn't make today. Right? There was an era when I was a little kid, a lot of people hitchhiked. Right? No one seemed to understand that the world had Ted Bundys and Richard Ramirez's in them. Right? You just couldn't imagine what is assumed right now on stations like ID Network and Oxygen. Right? You're watching an ID Network and, someone gets killed and you understand, okay, the killer is probably from their social circle. Might be their partner. Might be the son who wants that inheritance a bit too early. Might be the jealous coworker. Right? You have shows with names like, someone you thought you knew, where the people around you are shaky. Now understand the whole hitchhiking culture assumed that total strangers were safe to get in a car with and to travel hundreds of miles away from home. Right? You look at these shows from the 1960s, and people are hitchhiking along the highway, and they hop in the car and they say, "Hey, I'm going to LA," and the driver says, "You know what? I can take you to Santa Monica," and then you're in the car with them. Right? Folks might even sleep in the car while the trip's taking place. Well, right now our government is engaging in something I've criticized in the past: mass deportations of illegal immigrants. Right, folks, I got news for you. Whether you're legal or illegal, you can still be a vital part of an economy that's actually employing a lot of legal residents of the United States. Right? Whether you're in the Bronx along the D train line or the 4 train line. I'm just talking about trains I used to take to high school. Right? Let's say you're by Grand Concourse in the Bronx. If you're from the area, you know that sometimes you'll take your car to a mechanic and 2 or 3 of the guys at the shop might not even be speaking English. Right? I can tell you, when I was a kid, I would go to Chinatown in Manhattan to buy fireworks. Person I bought the fireworks from, they might not even speak English. You literally had to point to what you wanted to get the fireworks. Right, folks? You have minority communities all over the place where, let's just say, I'm guessing here, but the amount of people who are legal residents are probably, let's say, no more than 60%. Right? We talk about Los Angeles and everyone thinks about, West Hollywood. Right? Palos Verdes. Malibu, which, is its own city, but it's close enough to LA, right? That's what people are thinking about. They don't think about a huge part of LA, East Los Angeles. Have you been there? Have you been to East LA? Right, folks, you go to East LA and you start thinking to yourself, man, I should have paid attention to my Spanish teacher when I was in high school. Right, let's just say you're in parts of East LA and it's a vibrant part of Los Angeles. It is a major part of Los Angeles. Major. Right? You're there and you have a lot of Spanish-speaking people. Right? You're in a bar, you better know how to say, quiero dos cervezas, por favor. Right? You better have some language skills. Right? Well, just understand that right now in the United States, we're going the other way. Right? We're trying to deport people, and now we're finding out that economies are dying. I'm not kidding. We're finding out that there's work that needs to be done that's not being done. So, in the state of Florida, understand, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, wants his wife to be the next governor of Florida. Right? He has a vested interest in wanting to see Florida be able to succeed, for local economies in Florida to be able to thrive. Understand, one of my favorite politicians, Byron Donalds, has Trump's endorsement to be the next governor of Florida. Donalds, African American from my neck of the woods in New York City, right, who moved to Florida, has been talking up deportation. Right, folks? Okay, great. Politicians want to be tough guy. Do they know anything about what's actually happening? Well, let me tell you what's happening now in Florida, right? And you ask yourself, is this what I want in my community? They've deported so many workers that now there's legislation that's being pushed to have kids under 18, kids under 18 join the workforce to make up for the lost workers, the workers we didn't have to deport, but we did. Right, folks? Politicians can sound as tough as they want. Right? Are they going to be able to fix my broken down car if I'm along Grand Concourse in the Bronx the way I know immigrants might be able to at reasonable prices? Right? The answer is no. Right? I can go to a garage in the South Bronx. An adult who's in his 30s, who's been fixing cars for over a decade, might not be able to fully speak English, but with the help of co-workers at the garage, they can quote me a price. It's reasonable. It's something I can afford in these tough times. Right? Let's say you're supporting a family. You're dealing with New York City rental prices. You're renting an apartment. Just understand, I can get good work done from someone experienced. Am I going to get that from the sophomore in high school who now, under new legislation, is trying to replace the 10 plus year mechanic who happens to come from, name it, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Honduras, right? Folks, we're kidding ourselves. So let me tell you how this plays out. New York's a sanctuary city for a reason. Los Angeles is a sanctuary city for a reason. Right? How it plays out is once this xenophobia subsides, once the myth that immigrants are taking all of our jobs, as if they're a bunch of mechanics dying to work for garages near Grand Concourse in the Bronx, right? Once that dies down and people get back to operating an actual economy where there are broken down cars that need repair, you need someone who knows how to repair your car. Right? Let's say my car has brake problems and I have young children in my family. I need to know that the mechanic knows the importance of fixing the brake problem. I don't want some young kid who last week was in English class at some local high school who's there learning how to pop the hood, working on the brakes for my family vehicle. So Florida, which is in a real estate crisis right now, right, at a time where people are losing equity, need to value their money, are already getting hit with counterintuitive tariffs from our government that are raising the prices of things like cars, right? Let's say you were thinking about, buying a new car, your old car with brake problems. You were going to walk away from that. You were going to, get that scrapped. Now you're hearing about our government dropping 25% tariffs on foreign cars, and you're just days away from opening the paper and hearing that, you name it, Mexico, Canada, Germany has slapped 25% tariffs on American cars, and you understand that the price of the car you were looking at has just jumped in value. Now suddenly that old car that was just parked in the driveway You were debating whether you even wanted your teenage kid to take that car, right? Your daughter might not be ready for the idiosyncrasies that that car has, right? That car, you're not sure if you trust it for yourself for long trips. Now suddenly you need to get it repaired. You know there's some guys in your neighborhood who can do the job. You're not asking for everyone's immigration status. You just want the job done. You go to the garage, half the crew has been deported. They have some young kid with acne there. Is that the status quo you want? Is that the status quo that you think helps your community the most? We're finding out that that thought process is going to be rethought. Right, folks? Sanctuary cities are going to make a comeback because there are a lot of people like me who understand that many people without legal status are essential to their local economy. Right? If you've been in New York and you've actually, God forbid, ventured outside of Manhattan, right? If you've been to LA and, God forbid, you've actually ventured into East LA, you know what I'm talking about. Let's stop kidding ourselves too. There are ample illegal immigrants in Manhattan and in West LA. Right? Let's stop kidding ourselves. I had a client. She was an entrepreneur, and I had questions about her business, and she said, hey, I need for you to talk to my main guy. Right? So I started talking to the brains behind part of her operation. Right? The guy wasn't fluent in English. I understood. If she lost this guy, she would know what was happening in a huge portion of her business. Right? Are we better off deporting that guy? Let's talk about one final thing. You heard me say earlier in this video that we're headed for a recession. Right? I need for folks to understand, though, that life's not all or nothing. Right? Economics is not all or nothing. We understand that, don't we? So we keep talking about the real estate market. Right, folks? Real estate is local. If 4 of your neighbors suddenly put for sale signs on their properties on your block, the value of your house has just dropped. Especially if these houses on your block that are on the market linger on the market. You understand that, don't you? So in many places of the United States right now, we're waiting for the downturn in housing. Folks, it's already here. Let's talk about the way markets really work. I want people to pay attention, close attention, to what's happening in Florida right now. Right, folks? You've had a condo crisis in Florida, in part caused by an insurance crisis. Right? Understand those HOA fees have jumped, haven't they? If they have for you, tell us about it in the comment section of this YouTube video. Now you have layoffs. Now you have a housing crisis. Right? Unfortunately, part of the housing crisis is structural. Some people were working in places like New York City. COVID hit. They said, man, why am I up here freezing my butt off when I could go to Florida? Get much better weather. Be much closer to the water. Right? Be on streets that aren't as crowded as Manhattan streets. Right? I can go to Florida and I can live. Now suddenly your employer is saying, hey, Dan, we need you back at the office. Dan, you have a choice. You can come back to the office for 3 days a week, or you can not come back to the office ever again, and we'll have somebody else in your position. Right? So understand, They're people who have to move out of Florida at any price. What they're finding out is the prices are falling. Folks, the real estate crisis is here. Let me just tell you too, real estate is a leveraged sector. You understand, many of your neighbors have mortgages. You yourself might have a mortgage, right? You have banks, national banks, making loans, right, folks? Word gets around. Some bank finds that the security for their house loans is uncertain in the state of Florida. And that might impact how much money they're willing to lend in other areas. So Texas right now is having a real estate downturn. Let me tell you, this is always how it starts. You hear about some problem off in the distance. Right? It's off in the distance. You're thinking to yourself, oh man, what a downer. People in Florida are having a hard time with their housing market. Then suddenly you realize people where you live can no longer live there. That the layoffs that you're hearing from companies in your area have actually caused people who've been laid off to place their houses on the market. Now suddenly there are few for sale signs. Now suddenly folks who haven't lost their job are thinking to themselves, I need to get out of housing sooner rather than later, because the current valuation of my house might drop. Right? You have another group where they're looking around and they're thinking to themselves, wow, the state of Wyoming actually has its own stable coin, or will in July, right? They're thinking, man, I can be on this platform owning Tether and actually making a pretty safe rate of return because Tether's actually invested in U.S. Treasuries. Right? Then they're thinking the unthinkable. They're like, why am I fooling around with stable coins when I know things are eventually going to be priced in Bitcoin, in Ethereum? Right? I start looking at the price history of Bitcoin and I'm thinking, gee, this is much better than the price history of my house. Why am I a homeowner? Couldn't I live in my neighborhood as a renter for less than the price of owning a home today? And couldn't I be investing the difference in Bitcoin and making a mint? Right? Understand too, back in the day, investing in Bitcoin meant, putting money on a centralized exchange or figuring out how to use a cold storage wallet, treasure, ledger. Now, I can just, using my brokerage account, invest in Strategy or MetaPlanet or hell, GameStop. Right? I don't even need to fully understand all the custody issues. Hell, I could invest in a spot Bitcoin ETF. Right? Why am I playing around with GameStop when I can be in BlackRock's spot Bitcoin ETF? Right? Know that this company has been in the financial space for decades. So let me just say, folks, pay attention to markets. Don't wait for some wonk to say we are now officially in a recession. You need to be thinking through everything and reevaluating everything, asking yourself if the underlying narrative that got you into the investments you're in still applies. Right? Many people are going to wake up down hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Right? I've been there, waking up and, you find out that you're down a few $1,000s. I've been there. Trust me. Right? Let me just say, These are uncertain economic times. You don't have time to think to yourself, oh, I'll wait till a recession is formally announced. Right? By then, the housing crisis might be on your block. By then, the layoff crisis might be in your living room. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours. Folks, I'm still committed to Google. Hell, I'm still committed to Dash. Right? I consider, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that Google is not going to drop to, let's say, a 19 or 18 PE. Right? Just understand. I was born at night. I wasn't born last night. Google has been around long enough for me to actually have a sense of its price history. Right? For me to have a sense of what the company is doing and what the company's on the verge of doing. Right? The profitability of AVs. The fact that Teslas don't use LiDAR. Waymo does. Making Waymo's technology safer if you're from my school of thought. Right? Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Understand, when Google's down to a PE of around 20, I'm bullish. Particularly when they have a lot of cash on hand. I know their recent quarter missed on the top line. I'm good with that. Because, of course, the year-over-year revenue growth is at 14%. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.